Okay, well that failed miserably. So next time that's where we're going. I'm probably gonna cut there and move forward. Come on. Alright, so this time we are going to talk about thinking and consciousness. Last time I talked a little about psychosexual development, and you got to experience me being very uncomfortable with the analogy. So enjoy that, please, because if you don't, then no one has. Okay. Sorry, there's like only a really narrow span where I can fit and this camera works. I can't move a lot. There we go. Okay, so this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, it's a very narrow span. So this time we're going to talk about thinking and consciousness. Boom. Primary process thinking. So this is how the id thinks. How the id thinks, the way the unconscious mind operates. It does not contain the idea of no. And the goal is like essentially immediate gratification. Like, that's it. Now I'm going to hit some definitions on the next slide, but we're talking about the id here. It just doesn't. There's no. It's just does what it wants, and it wants to enjoy itself right now. Like, right now. Like, if my id were listening, I would just, like, leave and enjoy my Sunday. Thankfully, my id is pretty well contained. So, you get a whole video. So yeah, let's pop to the next slide so I can do some definitions. So, displacement. This is the idea, or back up. This is the replacing one idea or image with another. So you're displacing your thought and energy into a different idea. Condensation is several ideas smushed into one. There's lots of vocab here, and so a couple of these slides are literally just vocabulary. Symbolization is one thing, stands for another. So Freud originally thought that symbols were universal. Once you figured out exactly what a symbol was, that's actually the idea behind projective tests, is that how you interpret it like really maps onto one idea. And so if you see a specific symbol, then they can just map that into some giant dictionary where like a crab equals, I don't even know, because obviously this is not a real thing. Like it's your 9th grade English class, but to the extreme. And honestly, 9th grade English would have been easier if there was like an actual like one-to-one, because then you would know exactly what the scarlet letter meant. What does the red symbolize? But yes, so that was Freud's original thinking about it. However, later theorists, that these symbolizations can differ across people. Now, the logic here is that this is seen in very young children as well as in adults during delirium and in dreams. So you can like tap into the id and its inner meaning. And quote, sometimes in psychotics. So when a patient is having a psychotic episode, now this is like 19th century, late 19th, early 20th century language. We don't call people psychotics, just like we don't call people hysterics. We don't do it. Use person first language. Someone with psychoticism, someone with hysteria, which is actually fun fact that none of you ever wanted to know, but now you do. Hysteria is from the Greek, and it means wandering womb. So anyone who is hysteric has their uterus just wandering around, and that's what's causing it. Obviously, this is not true. Your uterus doesn't wander around, ladies. It stays put. Sorry. Okay, so secondary process thinking is conscious thought. This is the how the ego thinks. So it's rational, it's practical, it can delay gratification, it develops second, so like babies don't have this according to Freud, that it's got a less important role, even, but that's the idea. So it develops first, ego second, and another way to think about this is levels of consciousness. There's a topographical model that I have on the next slide, the iceberg, as you will, but I want to give you some terms first before we draw the picture. So the conscious mind is the part of the mind, of the mental functioning you can observe. It's the least important. Some of it is, that's kind of where the ego is mostly. It's not perfectly divided. Preconscious is the idea that you are not currently aware of something, but that it can be brought into your awareness. It's kind of like that middle ground. I will occasionally call this the subconscious, but preconscious is probably a better way to think about it. That it's like before the conscious, not like underneath, but like it could come out. And the unconscious is where all the id and superego live, if you were to like personify these entities. And some of the ego. It's, according to Freud and Freudian thinking and psychoanalytic thinking, the most important. And it's difficult to bring these ideas to the surface. And the only ways to do them, according to this module, is using hypnosis and free association. And the idea is to look for clues in slips of the tongue, accidents and lapses in memory, so paraphraxis, which I think is pronounced correctly. But if you can find like a psychoanalytic person pronouncing it, please use that as your share a cool thing. Because I would love to be able to, you'll hear it in a, Austrian accent. It would be fun too. So, but these aspects are really difficult to bring to the surface. So here's the image. This is straight from the textbook, so I'm not at an issue with copyright. So the consciousness and iceberg that we've all seen. We've got the ego, like mostly at the surface. We've got the subconscious, not the subconscious, the preconscious, like right here where you could bring it to the surface. Superego. It's not as nicely sliced here. These are kind of a little messy, but that's the idea. Okay, paraphraxis! These are, quote, leakages from the unconscious mind that manifest as mistakes, accidents, omissions, or memory lapses. These are kind of the cutesy way to say Freudian slips. They're from this belief in determinism that everything happens for a reason, that there are no, like, accidents, there are no coincidences, it's just your mind expressing itself. So when I say when I mean one word and say another, that is deliberate under Freudian, instead of just my brain being a little jumbled. Freud would interpret that. Freud and psychoanalytics, analysis people would, interpret that jumbling is deliberate, that you can untangle it and interpret each piece. Forgetting is thought of as suppression, so it's the unconscious mind is deliberately doing it as a way to influence your life. So like that's how it can like get its behavior out, by like deliberately keeping those memories from you. And slips are often in speech, but these can be in actions as well. They're more likely to occur when someone is tired, which is true. You are more likely to make mistakes when you're tired. But they're unintended. And they're allegedly caused by leakages of suppressed thoughts or impulses. They like burst through the surface. And usually when your like ego is so the tiredness is this idea that like your ego's not working at full capacity, so that it's more likely to like those leakages are more likely to happen. So when you're not paying attention, are hurried or excited. Cool. Next time so I've sliced this up a lot. Actually, yeah, so next time we are going to talk about anxiety and defenses. So, bye-bye.